Can you bring camera a little closer to you?
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, perfect. This is awesome. Just professional.
Okay.
Welcome to our show, IIT 2020. Future is Now video series. Would you like to impact a billion lives? Our alumni have innovated, created, and successfully ran thousands of multi-billion-dollar organizations. But pandemic caught us off guard. How can we steer in this new world? I have invited an exceptional guest today, Sandeep Srivastava. He is IIT Bombay alum, chemical engineer, MBA in finance from Wharton. He is founder of Magnolia Invesco. He has co-founded a company called ValueCom, which he sold to Rediff in 2002. And he has done some really, really amazing work. Today, we are going to talk about skill building and entrepreneurship in pandemic world. Thank you very much. Sandeep, please share with us a little bit about your journey. Mostly, I want to talk about your time in IIT. What was your hostel? How was the place there?
Yeah, would love to. Would love to. I mean, those were, as any IITian would say, I'm sure you would do the same. Those were our best years, my best years for sure. And it's kind of funny because I grew up in Delhi, and all my friends from Delhi, from various schools that I knew well, obviously opted for IIT Delhi. I had never been to Bombay, and my parents were getting transferred to Shillong from Delhi at the time. And I had an uncle who was a professor at the time at IIT Bombay. So I just said, you know what, why not do something different? And that's kind of been the theme all my life. Why not try something different? It was not easy. I literally took, I think it was the deluxe special, whatever the train was. And I was 16. I went after 11th grade. Never traveled by myself. Just sat on that, took my bike with me, and just took off.
No way. You even took the bike to train?
I took bike. I said,
I need that?
Well, hold on. As in bicycle.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. My Red Hero stayed with me for 5 years. But anyway, and that's how I landed in IIT at the campus. And obviously, you walk in, and little do you know, a senior pulls you even before you get in and starts ragging. And that's where relationships begin. So at the age of 16, my life was redefined at IIT. Yeah.
So Sandeep, tell us something, any memory, impactful story you have in IIT which really defined your life even today. Because to me, my personal experience of IIT is like everybody else is very unique. One big one is they don't teach you anything, but they put you in such a complex situation. And when you come out of it, you say, oh, wow, I can do that. I can solve this problem. I can think like that. So we really talk about systematic thinking, but I really want to hear a story from you.
Yeah. I mean, several stories that come to mind. And I'd say the most impactful stories were actually outside the classroom. And it's the relationships you build in your hostel. I was in hostel 6, which was actually at the time the last hostel, a long trek from the main gate. And we were a pretty
Go hostel 6.
Go hostel 6 big time. It's called the Vikings now. It used to be a hostel 6.
Nice.
So anyway, I think you think about your classes, courses, and all that was great and fine. I'd say so two different stories. One inside, one outside the classroom. We had an electrical, even as a chemi, there was a compulsory double E course that we had to take. It was called Principle of Electric Circuit, something like that. And the professor, Professor Kamath, was very famous, or I guess infamous, for his grading. He would be jokingly known, folks who went to IIT, we knew him as Homo for obvious reasons, but terrible with grading. And that was a course that I took as the only sort of advanced electrical course that was required. And went in with a lot of trepidation, almost thinking that this is sort of going to be my guaranteed C that semester. And the guy was just so nice for whatever reason. I cracked an A in that course. Wow. And if you talk to the double E guys, they will tell you it's impossible. The guy doesn't even give A's out. So, and that made me realize right there that you just can't take anything for granted, right? We go in with assumptions in life, right? We go in thinking, this is a bad boss. This is going to be my, worst job interview, right? Life doesn't pan out quite like that. So I think keeping an open mind about people, about, learning opportunities is what I would say, what was a takeaway for me inside the classroom. Outside the classroom, many examples with friends in various scenarios. The one that comes to mind actually is I was finishing my BTech project, and I realized, as most of us do, but I was the worst. I had literally done nothing, and I was down to 4 days before my BTP submission. I had done the experiments, but hadn't written a word. About to have a breakdown when I went out for a walk with a friend of mine. It was a long walk, and again, you think about those times where you're sort of almost about to break down because you're like, I've done nothing. I've not written one page for like a big thesis. Anyway, long story short, the reassurance that I got from this person about, just take it cool, buddy. It doesn't matter. What's the big deal? Even if you get a B or a C, it's not going to change. You already have your, admissions or, MBA scholarships, whatever. I mean, most of it is in place. So big deal. And he's like, I've done not even half, I'm only halfway through myself. Anyway, I came back, and Sanjeev, I was up 3 nights, pretty much back to back. I may have slept for an hour each night. And I just wrote and wrote. And back then we would write and then give it to a typist who would type and then give you. Barely made it, but thanks to this buddy of mine, I barely made it. Submitted in time, and it's an amazing story because I pulled another A on my BTech project, which I thought was, I was going to pretty much flunk. So I think the camaraderie and the confidence you gain outside the classroom was legendary. I mean, that's what made most of us, super resilient, super confident, and just, able to sort of take on pretty much anything. I mean, the professors, as you know, were brutal with their grading. The competition was intense. We can go on and on and on. But I think that combination, the reason why IITians generally do well in any environment probably is that combination outside and inside.
So Sandeep, you are doing a phenomenal work. And since you brought that story, so I'll share one of the story which may be relevant to our audiences, a collaborative learning. So I remember distinctly, I was studying this subject, plates and shell banding, and our professor was Professor Dhumer. He gave us an assignment which nobody could solve, none of us. And this is a minor time. And 3 of us, I was in Shivalik. We said, okay, we don't know. We have no freaking clue what he teaches us. So tomorrow is minor, what do we do? So 3 of us, we sat down, spent the whole night solving 9 questions. Whole night we could solve, I think, 7 questions, 3 of us combined.
Yeah.
And guess what? Next day it was the question paper. Same questions in the question paper. 4 of us could finish, of course, we knew 7 questions, so it was like, putting it out there. Yeah. 4 of us was able to finish, I believe we were able to finish, I think, 6 questions max. There was one more person, I forgot the name of this guy. And even till date, and we all got So 4 of us got the A grade in his subject because of this minor. We didn't do well in minor 2 and major.
Yeah.
Just this one. But this the reason I'm bringing that point is learning is collaborative. And that is one thing I see is missing. And when we talk about a skill gap, and we want to deep dive into that, the challenge I find it is we bring these kids or the people in our organization or even the college and institution, and instead of providing them a collaborative environment, we give them things. Oh, you go and read this book, you go and watch this video. It doesn't work like that. And that is a big reason the education system is really into a fiasco, because that collaborative learning is missing. So we can learn everything online. In fact, it is free. And a lot of time, even my friends ask me, why am I spending that kind of money on my kids' education? Because they are attending only one class a week and they are exposed to such a high risk.
Yeah.
This collaborative learning is so critical and fundamental. So that's my take. So let's talk about your journey, and specifically, I want to know a little bit more about your experience when you founded ValueCom and you sold it to Rediff. How that started and what lessons you have learned you will do differently or do different things in future.
Great question, and I've thought about it quite often. So this was in the mid 90s, or actually later part of 90s, when I was working for Ameritech, which is now part of AT&T. So I was in telecom, and I had a really good friend of mine, Arvind, who was with Kraft Foods. We were both good friends, good family friends. And this was right after Netscape went public. And, things were just sort of starting to happen. And we were like, we got to do something. There's something going on here. And as we all know, Netscape was the start of the internet revolution. But nothing would just sort of, come to us. And we just said, well, let's just pick something very simple that we can solve. And I didn't want to give up my job. He didn't want to give up his job. So we just said, okay, maybe there's so what are the problem that we were facing? And over, an evening, we just said, single biggest pain point for us at the time is international calling. These calls to India were like $2 a minute or something like that. And there were some offerings which were just a little lower, but the AT&T and MCI were all in the between $2 and $3 a minute, something like that. And we said, this is crazy. Our monthly bills as a percent of our salary is huge, monthly telecom bills, because we were calling India a lot. And so we wanted to solve that problem. So it always starts with something like that. At the time, we said, you know what, perhaps in the browser, the Netscape browser was just out. And we said, maybe there is an opportunity to take this online someday. Well, how do you do this? And we didn't want to invest, capital. We didn't want to, at the time, there were very few ways to raise capital. So this was late, I think mid to late 96. So Arvind actually went, and I said, look, do what you need to do and I'll think about it. And he just said, and telecom, being in telecom, he just went ahead and started something on his own with his partner. This was in, I think, early part of 95, early 96, early to mid 96, with another partner. And just tinkering with a few things. And pretty soon his partner said, you know what, this is not interesting. So he came to me and he said, listen, if, we've really done nothing. We've just sort of started offering a few things. So we were basically at the time packaging, these reseller cards, like a phone card and a number, and they were just reselling it to a few folks. And he said, listen, we're doing something very simple. There's very little money in that. The margin is very thin. Can we do something bigger in this space? And
it's about
I said,
impact.
Yeah, I mean, with a little more sort of, scale and impact than just, making some money and just bundling reseller options. So net, I think, and with my telecom background, I said, you know what, we could even strike some good deals in this space, because I can see that things are changing, and I had some contacts being in telecom and so forth. So basically, long story short, our wives got involved first. And we just said, we'll just watch this and see how it goes. But just to fast forward, what we essentially did is we took that entire business over the next few years online. And pretty soon after a couple of years, once we hit a couple $1 million in revenue, both he and I came on full time once there was enough money, meat for us. And by end of, and we were really fortunate because we had, this was, the Y2K boom, gave us the tailwinds, right around, I would say 97, 98 is where all these tech firms were hiring like crazy. So a lot of H1 visa flow, a lot of folks from other countries were wanting to sort of buy our plans and so forth. So, and we took our plans online in around 98, 99, something like that. And then that created sort of the exponential growth for us, literally. Okay. So that, to us, the scale came right when we took the entire business online. Initially, we were sort of taking orders on
so you are one of the, I will say, one of the pioneer where you understand digital, you understood digital commerce and how it is going to change our world and transform your business to that. So let's talk a little bit more, because I see you have done almost similar thing in the real estate too. And when I look at you, I find it very interesting that you have done chemical engineering. Then you got into telecom. You did, you even went to Stanford. And you are a BCG fellow. And you have done so many phenomenal things in your life. And I'm just thinking how a person can do all that in few decades. And now you are bringing all those lessons and helping create amazing opportunities, not just for yourself, for all your investors in the real estate. So I'm going to push it a little bit forward. The conversation we were having a little bit earlier is when we look at all these organizations like Microsoft, Apple and all, you were sharing some very interesting data around it, to why these companies are so successful. So can we talk about that now? Can you share with our audience what really happened? Because you are in Seattle, you were hanging out with all these people. So what was really going on?
Yeah. I think, so just to sort of backtrack a little bit, right? So, and you're spot on, right? I mean, I have been through a ton of different industries, different types of, academic exposure. It partly comes from restlessness, I think, but it also comes from, I guess, moving from a linear environment to a little more non-linear and then eventually exponential. So if I break my journey into three parts, I'd say, the engineering part of my life, and I worked at DuPont for a few years before business school. I'd say that was the linear part of my life. I just saw it. I mean, there was, very little incremental change I could make at a company like DuPont. And as a Chemie, there was clearly job security, great salary. I'd say I was probably putting in 20-hour weeks in a 40-hour job, and yet getting, the highest raises and all that. So life was great. But that's where the restlessness came. And I said, I can't do this. I just can't do this, right? And I think the P&L part was literally, staring at my face. At DuPont, I didn't see that coming for years in my 20s. So I think going to Wharton and sort of trying my hand at consulting and then other, industries was trying to get on to a little bit to a non-linear, side of things where you can make a lot more impact. I even worked at General Mills for a couple of years in brand management, and there were literally no Indians in brand management at the time, just because I wanted to see that world. What exactly is it when you take on a brand and build a brand out? And that brand experience then actually helped me when we built ValueCom, because we built a very successful brand, which is why Readers bought us. They wanted to crack the Indian market. We were in, I'd say a little over half of our business was India, US, and vice versa. And then we had, of course, China, Japan, and other countries as well. But that transition to entrepreneurship was the non-linear part where we literally saw, a business explode. And wealth creation, obviously, happens there, as we all know now. But at the time, it was a risky bet, leaving a job, young, 2-year-old or 3-year-old at the time in tow. So some calculated risks, but we knew we could bounce back if it didn't work out. But I'd say that was not the non-linear part. The exponential side is where the third part of my life, I think, which when I got into the investment side, is where I saw the exponential growth, right? So you get on from linear to non-linear, and then you literally get to the vertical side, where wealth creation can be a lot faster, and not just wealth, but I'd say value creation is a lot more significant, as we all know, as an investor. So, I mean, this audience knows what it is. So I don't need to rehash that. But I'd say, and we are happy to sort of transition from this to your topic, which is skill gaps. You need different skills at each stage of your life. When you're in engineering, you need hardcore technical skills. That's pretty much it, right? You're sort of confined to one manager, one project, and you need to know your stuff. Yeah. When you get on to the business side, you obviously expand your business skills, and there's a lot more impact there and so forth. But when you get into entrepreneurship, you really need to get onto the soft side, right? How do you get onto deal making? How do you negotiate well? Right? How do you sell well? How do you, deliver customer value and so forth? Those are completely different skills, and you don't learn those in the classroom, right? So anyway, I just didn't want to sort of, change the subject so fast, but does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, but the big thing, Sandeep, I want to talk about it is really how do you create an exponential impact? And when we talk about exponential impact and look at the companies like Microsoft, like Apple and Google, what you see is their secret, which will be relevant for our audience and how they can learn and apply those things in the businesses they are into.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, it's very simple, right? It is about delivering exceptional customer value. And I think if you price anything, right, at a certain level and deliver, 10 to 100 to 1,000 times value to any customer, that's where significant value creation happens. It doesn't happen when you sell a box of cereal and make, 10, 20%, 30% margin on it. I mean, there's little value, for the seller, and there's minimal value for the buyer. I think the reason the Apples and the Googles and Microsoft, Netflix, you can just go on and on and on. The reason they are who they are is the customer impact is exponential. And if the customer impact is exponential, or Zoom, my buddy Eric, same thing, right? I mean, you just see that exponential impact. I mean, it's funny, even though, Eric, Yuan and I are good friends, I didn't subscribe to that for like the first, 3 years or something. I just said, $15 a month or $10, whatever it was, should I, shouldn't I? And then when I signed on, and, he used to laugh at me when we briefly, met early on in his cycle. And he said,
You're not a good friend, Sandeep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a good friend, because I just said,
you won't even pay me $15. That's not fair.
And finally, it was like, duh, right? Once you subscribe, you realize the value is just exponential. And so I think when you make that leap, any business, right? When you make that leap is where, and we've seen that, right?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. And the way I define entrepreneurship which is, I think a lot of our audience and especially in alumni community, when I talk to them, it's a misnomer that we have to start a company to be an entrepreneur. To me, entrepreneurship is no different than taking accountability. Entrepreneurship is nothing but you think how the future is, where the future is going, and create that. Convince your team, whether you are working with a large organization or a small organization, when you see something, when you're really passionate about it, you go and do something about it. A lot of organizations, especially if you look at Cisco, is built on that approach. And a lot of organization has huge appetite. The challenge I see it is most of our alum, especially I'll know, and even people outside, they say, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. For entrepreneurship, I need $1 million, $100 million, $1 billion before I start. No, that's not. It's all about taking the accountability, thinking the future, and going and doing something about it, whether it is in the company time or your own time. But in reality, Are we participating in the future? Are we creating value for the future generation, for the next generation? So let's talk about a skill gap. So where do you see opportunities? Where do you see skill gap today?
Yeah, that's a great topic and one I really like. And that's because I think people, whether it's IITians or whoever, they're really fascinated by entrepreneurship when they see the Apple and the Netflixes and they're like, I want to do my own thing, right? And I always say, what does that really mean? I want to do my own thing. Do you even know what that means, right? You could do your own thing in many different ways. You could even literally, right? Find the next Apple or the next Zoom and invest in them, and you could sort of do your own thing. If it's about wealth creation, right? If it's about, right, so people always confuse, and obviously every time you have a boom in the market, you give rise to entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, and that's a bad thing. It's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing when you have serious guys with the skills, and I'll talk about that a little bit, and the risk appetite to do that when they sort of come out of that. But when people do it just for greed and for money, like they did in the late 90s, that's not necessarily the best thing, right? I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, they learn a few things, they go back to the workforce and so forth. But I think if you want to create wealth, I don't believe heart of heart that entrepreneurship is the right thing. So that's a contrarian view. You can't go in to become an entrepreneur because you want to make X million dollars. Because I think, wealth creation is an outcome, one outcome of entrepreneurship. That's not the reason to pursue entrepreneurship. So that's one, right? So the reasoning has to be right. And that's what, so if someone says, I'm working for Google and I make, a couple $100,000 a year, and that's not good enough, and therefore I want to do my own thing, I think that's a pretty stupid reason to be an entrepreneur. But if you see an opportunity like, Eric saw when he was at Cisco, to create something, he didn't do it. I mean, I know this firsthand. He didn't do it because he wanted to make more money. I mean, I think when WebEx sold to Cisco, he had done well enough. I think he did it because he saw a clear gaping opportunity. And so I think if you're someone who sees a clear opportunity and then and understands the skills required to sort of chase that dream, and skills doesn't mean the technical skills. You can hire your CTO or someone else, but if you have the vision and you have the risk appetite, right, and you're passionate about that opportunity, I think that's a good starting point. Now, after that, there are certain things that you need to have also, in my opinion. I think if you decide to chase a dream, if you ask me, you've got to be a phenomenal salesman. People always make fun of salesmen. I think salesmen are the best things that are out there, right? You've got to pitch. You've got to pitch to hire, a partner. You got to pitch to hire employees, right? I mean, who's going to join company XYZ, right? So you got to pitch. You got to pitch to get investors in. You got to pitch to get the right terms from vendors, right? So you can go on and on and on. So you've got to be a great salesman. You can't depend on your chief sales officer or VP of marketing to do that. You've got to have some of those skills. So I think that's important. I think you've got to be great at negotiation in general, right? Because you'll negotiate for term sheets, you'll negotiate with vendors. You can go on and on and on. Your employee will ask you to match the Google salary and stock options. You can't do that, right? So you got to convince the guy of your dream. In any case, I think those skills people call, you can call it soft skills or social skills or whatever you call it. But I think that you have to have someone tell you that you've got it, buddy. I mean, you've got your dream and you've got those basic skills. Now you can run with that, right? And then, of course, lastly, the risk appetite. Can you deal with failure, right? I mean, that's a chapter in itself, right? I mean, each time I've done something, the single biggest thing was, could I deal with failure? And if the answer is, yeah, why not, right? What's the big deal?
So anyway. You and me both know Silicon Valley is built on failures. If we see it, we have more failures than the success if we do cumulatively. But that's how we thrive. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. So failing is an amazing thing. And I see that even in my life. I was completely white twice.
Mm.
And today, if I look back, I won't change any of those things in my life, because those experiences makes me a different person. Those experiences changed the way I look at the world, I look at the things. So uh,
Just one more
let's,
thing, Sanjeev, I don't forget that.
yeah,
Just hold your thought. I think another very important thing is, entrepreneurship of any type is a very lonely journey. Not everyone can stomach, you know what I mean, right?
I know.
When things go well, you've got like a line behind you. And when you deal with failure, there is no one to be found. I mean, not even your family is around you. I mean, you are like totally looking into the mirror at failure and saying, I got to sort of fix this, right? And I got to move on. I have to cut the losses. And so I think that's another very important thing that I forgot. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So coming back to our question of a skill gap. So in the post-pandemic world, and I'm hoping that we will be post very soon. I don't know how far this pandemic is going to go, but two things I find very interesting and maybe a silver lining. One is our banking, our essential services, hospitals, every single thing worked almost. Part of the issues we had in Italy and other places, but if we look at the holistic picture, technology has made it possible. I'm just thinking in my head, 20 years ago, if this would have happened, it would have been a catastrophe. You and me may not have a food on our table. There will be mayhem. We will be killing people. And I saw people fighting over a bag of rice. So that is fine. Let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
You are studying companies because you are investing into so many companies. Is phenomenal. You have done like maybe, I don't know, 100, 200 plus deals till date. So what are the areas you see IITians can learn, understand, or what they should do today so they are ready or they are future ready? That's how I would like to put it.
I mean, we're talking to a bunch of, very smart people here. So they all obviously understand, the basics of, of cloud and where that's taking us.
Right.
I think, between cloud and mobility, I think we are we have entered a completely new world. I think what's more important are the applications that are out there, right? I mean, telemedicine is literally exploding as we speak. I'm sort of used to now connecting my parents to their doctor on Zoom or WhatsApp, and it works out just great, right? So I mean, telemedicine is here to stay, and that's a long, term, opportunity. Education clearly is another big one, as we know, it's even if you look at the Indian startups like Baiju and so many more in the US, I think education edutech is here to stay forever. I'm not sure. I think the pandemic has taught us, fortunately or unfortunately, that we don't even need physical classrooms, which is going to shake up colleges, universities, schools worldwide. But I think there's going to be an explosion coming in that area. Media, as we know, has been redefined completely by the Amazons and the Netflixes of the world. We're all so comfortable watching everything in our living rooms, or family rooms, and we don't need to walk into a theater. So I don't know what the future of that is. That gets redefined in the pandemic. So I think the pandemic has forced us, even family events, right, are happening now over Zoom.
Yeah, our own conference, which used to be physical, now we are doing on online, and you may find it fascinating. So we are going to launch a campaign, and we are calling it Watch Party, and we are hoping globally in 100 plus countries we have IITians. They will host these events at their home or at some place where they bring in their friends, of course, with social distance. We don't want anybody to get sick, and really create that immersive, collaborative environment, and we are going to have it broadcasted on our web page and other app and all that. But in reality, you are absolutely right. So one word, if I say, we have to think collaboration differently. we have to think how we interact very differently. And I don't know the right answers, but I don't believe VR is that idea. The experience is not there. So how we can create digital collaboration, which is feels almost real. And I don't have the answers, otherwise I'll be working on it. Sandeep, if you have some ideas, please do share with us. But one thing I want before we wrap up is what are the three things you advise every single audience to do every single morning when they get up?
Interesting. Okay. I think, in terms of the future, I think it is going to come down to UI. And I think companies like Zoom and Facebook will redefine what that is. So with virtual reality, I think this interaction, which is a sort of a two-dimensional interaction, will eventually become a three-dimensional experience of sorts. And so I think social interaction has to be more interactive. It needs to it needs some more legs. There are enough folks who are getting Zoom fatigued and so forth. So there's a ton of opportunity, obviously, in that space, because even as schools become remote over time, or at least they move into a hybrid model, there is social restlessness, which is still not fully addressed.
Yeah.
So I think that will just keep evolving. And I think there's enough going on in that area. So anyway, so coming to those three things, which is to me is very interesting when you wake up each morning. I think what I find very interesting every morning, the first thing, of course, which I don't always do well, but I think the first thing I think of and I try to do every morning is my yoga and exercise routine, at least 5 days a week, no matter where I am. And I'd like to sort of, make that a little more regular. So I think you got to start your day with that. A lot of times you get into your emails and your WhatsApp messages, et cetera, et cetera. So I think no matter what kind of life you are living, I think you've got to sort of start your day with that. So that's one. I think the second thing is, touching base with your family members every morning. And that's one thing that I do. My son, was in San Francisco and moving back to New York now. But the first thing I do is, talk to both my boys, have a quick chat, see how they're doing. I think that connect is important, even as these kids, grow and they want to get away from you, which is why he tells me many times, Dad, you just keep calling me every morning. And I'm like, no, we will talk every morning. And we have the same, I would say, half an hour discussion between my wife and I, just about everything, about families, about plans, but we spend that time together. So I think family time every morning, whatever time you wake up, I think that should be a priority no matter what. So that's, I'd say, number two. And I think number three is making a list. I make a list of 10 things that I want to do that particular day that I really have to check off the box, no matter what. So that, the list can be endless, but, having a list which you sort of work through that day and feel a sense of accomplishment. Because as you know well, Sanjeev, the day can go so fast with even if you do one or two things. So anyway, I try to keep that list of 10 going every day. Can't hear you.
Sandeep, with that, I want to thank you. And so these are the three lessons you gave our audience. One is focusing on your physical health. As soon as you get up, you have to think about how you nourish your body, because if you nourish your body, you are nourishing your mind and you can be more effective. Second thing I learned from you today is family is very important. So think how you can connect with your family. It doesn't matter what are the ways and mediums, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is, just connect with them, find ways. So it's very, very important for our mental and emotional health. And especially right now, we are dealing with a lot of mental health issues. I see the people who work with me, they are going through really, really rough time. And the third big thing is plan your day. at a high level. Don't fall in love with that plan, but have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, there is no way you can navigate yourself to success. So these are the three very, very important things. And I love it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much again, Sandeep, for your time. I'm Sanjiv Goyal, Conference Chair of IIT2020.org, Pan IIT USA's mega virtual event. And I invite all of you to this unique opportunity, an opportunity to join us to co-invent and co-define paradigms for the new world. Please register at IIT2020.org. Our event is open to all. If you are engineer of future, yes, engineer of future, we need you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeev.
Sandeep, so we are offline now.
Awesome.
Oh, that was good.
You're a charismatic guy, man.
I didn't do anything.
You got it like just so together. It's amazing talking to you. You just infuse so much energy. Doesn't matter who's talking. I mean, you'd be a good. You need to become a. I hate to use the word TV host because TV has become sort of the past now. But you do amazing with some kind of a tech show or something that you do. I mean, forget IIT 2020. That's a great start. But you can just do an amazing job. By the way, I was just thinking about this. I didn't want to say it. I was about to say something.
Please.
I just think that IIT 2020, the conclave, this format that you're creating for the pandemic, that may end up being the future of IIT 2020. It seriously will, because no matter where you locate this conference, in India or in the Bay Area or in New York, what percent of the alums show up? It's not even like 2%. I don't know what number, 1%.
1%. 1%. Max number, we are able to get 1%.
1%. And when I've been to these, I look around and people that I know, just no more than 20 guys from my IIT that I can spot, and then other same thing. So to just pull people in. So I think it's going to be a hybrid in reality, which is the networking needs to be social, right? So you create some kind of those chat rooms or whatever you're making, those break rooms, I don't know what. So networking has to be social.
So my expectation, Sandeep, on that is how do I convince?
Yeah.
And that's where I can use some help from you.
Yeah.
I'm really looking seriously to have watch parties globally.
Yeah.
Literally in every single city of India to every single city globally. That's my dream. Yeah. Because it's not about the content. This is one thing I'm telling my team too. I say, we are spending a lot of time on content, which is important. But content is a very small element, always, of our conferences.
Yeah.
Magic happens when you and me are having coffee and you say, hey, Sandeep, what are you doing? I say, oh, shit. Oh, I'm doing the same thing. Why don't we collaborate? And that is, I can't do that. And that's why I was talking or listening when you were saying, the biggest challenge is how do we create a hybrid environment? Because that is going to happen. And that hybrid environment where we have technology on one side, which is making it possible. And at the same time, there is some personal touch.
Yeah.
And watch party is one way I believe we can really make this more cooler. We also thought about having an unconference session. So I'd love to get your views. What do you think about unconference? Unconference is basically we provide a few Zoom rooms available. People can register. And if nobody is there, anybody can be talking and people can join, go in and out. But I'm hoping that these rooms will be sold out.
Yeah.
But anything we can do to make this experience more personal, I'm looking for ideas.
Yeah. I think, Sanjeev, one thing that I've noticed when I've come to these Pan IITs is you're spot on, which is, look, I've been to so many TiCons as well, right? I mean, there are, even at TiCons, and TiCons are pretty rich in content, as you know, very rich.
They spend a lot of time on content.
They spend a lot of time building that.
We don't do that much.
But there are two things, exactly. I think there are two things which really motivate people to show up. I think content is number three. I think one are those charismatic keynotes. I think people just love those. I think, when you have, whoever, a Steve Jobs
Bill
or whoever,
Gates, Steve Jobs, Tim Cook, and all.
anyone. I mean, and these days it doesn't even have to be larger than life. I mean, it could even be the founder or the CEO of Snowflake, for that matter. It doesn't matter. These are people who have built or led great companies to become what they are. I think when those guys come and speak, and they have to be good speakers. So it's not as important to put a brand name there, but it is important to put somebody who's charismatic and who connects with the audience. I think that is always going to be a big one, whether it's in a fireside chat format or
whatever format works for them.
Whatever format. But I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think panel discussions are somewhere there. I mean, maybe they're right above the pure sort of content talk. Maybe I think people probably enjoy panel discussions a little more than a one-sided presentation. So I'd put them second last and last. But in the middle is your concept of that, of those Zoom rooms, under the broad bucket of networking, right? I mean, people really want to know. They want to know and get to know people and like-minded people, right? I mean, even I always go back and just was telling Richa, and you've not met Richa. I don't think you have.
I never met Richa.
And I was telling her about you, and she said, "Oh, who's Sanjiv? I've not met him." I said, I mean, she's heard, but she says, "But I've not met him." She said, "How do you know him?" I said, "If I tell you, you're going to scream at me." I said, you remember how I met Anil Kejriwal? And she said, "Oh, the guy was in Aralia." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Remember you were calling me and you kept saying, let's go, because we were standing when we first met at a bar. I mean, literally, we were grabbing a drink." Mm-hmm. And she said, "Bas ho gaya, chalo, let's go," from someplace. Yeah. And I said, "Give me 2 minutes. I'm talking to this guy. He's a fascinating guy. I want to talk to him a little more, right?" Yeah. So finally, after the third time, she said, "No, but are you getting late? You got to go." I took his number. I said, "I want to meet you and I want to talk to you a little more because we need to, And he goes, "No, we will do that." And then we met the next day for coffee. But point I'm making is, and then that led to, meeting you and a bunch of other folks. But my point is, I think at the core of it, even in a personal and professional world, Sanjeev, I have a theory, and my theory is people are very lonely. At the end of it, at the core of it, people get lonely. Now don't confuse loneliness by saying, yeah, but they go out and they do. It doesn't matter. They're lonely. They're lonely because